Morning, everybody. We'll start now.
Good morning, sir.
Completed part A, which is oil and only oils regarding oils and edible, non-edible, and essential oils, and various ways of extracting oil from the seeds and hydrogenation of oil. We have seen. And today, now we will start a part B of Unit 2, which is soaps, glycerin, and detergents. So this is a syllabus of your part B introduction. In the introduction, we'll just classify what are the cleaning components are there. According to the classification, there are two types of cleaning components. One is soap and one is detergent. Then among the detergents, we further have a classification like anion, cation, non-ionic surfactants. Or soaps or detergents are nothing but a surface active agents, or we can simply call it surfactants. Okay, that's the meaning of surfactant. Then detergent builders, various forms of external added builders will be there in order to improve the cleansing characteristics of detergents. So we will study see in this one. Then next one is methods of soap production. Okay, there are various methods for soap production like batch production. Then next one is the continuous production. Okay, we will see in this one. So then methods for detergent manufacturing. So for the detergent manufacturing, like various sulfates, sulfated fatty alcohols, sulfonates, etc. How to synthesize those we can see in this one. The next one, detergent versus soaps. What is the difference between soaps and detergents? We can see. Then natural and synthetic glycerin manufacturing methods. So various ways we can extract the glycerin from a natural soap production process, and at the same time many petroleum derivatives can also be act as a sorry for the interruption. Okay, okay, many petroleum derivatives can act as a glycerin, can act as a raw material. Is the cleansing compounds. There, what are the cleansing compounds? Cleansing compounds are nothing but compounds which are used for the cleaning purpose. Cleaning purpose, any type of surface, like fabric, like any metal surface or anything which is used to clean that particular surface is called a cleansing compound. Okay, these are particularly used for the human comfort, and many industrial applications are also there in the cleaning mechanism. Okay, so in the cleaning mechanism, what it involves is the colloidal chemistry mechanisms. So what is that colloidal chemistry? We have to know that one. As you can see in this picture, there is a grease. Grease is nothing but our dirt component. Okay, this is a hydrophobic molecule, grease, or a dirt, any type of any organic dirt which will be present on our fabric is called a grease, or simply as per industrial terminology, we can call it as soil. Therefore, surfactants, detergents, soaps are categorized in such a way that they should have a high dirt removal capacity, high soil removal capacity. Their capacity is decided by how they are removing the particular soil. Soil is nothing but a dirt which is present on the fabric surface. So you can see this is a grease. Okay, this is a surfactant molecule or a soap or detergent molecule. In this tail is called, this tail, as you can see in the form of tube is there. This is a tail which is hydrophobic in nature, which is as per chemical composition, it is a radical, free radical, what we call fatty acid radical R molecule. Then it is also associated with one head, which is hydrophilic molecule, which is nothing but a alkali molecule. Na, like sodium soap. For the sodium soap, it is M means Na. For the potassium soap, M means K. Okay, so any success of any cleansing agent depends on supplying the two molecules. The one is the hydrophobic molecules, and second one is the hydrophilic molecules. Okay, now we can say that success of any type of cleansing agent is involved, is to successfully supply the two molecules, namely hydrophobic molecule and hydrophilic molecules. This grease first what this hydrophilic molecule whatever is there, this grease is present in the on the surface of the fabric. Okay, the surface of the fabric. Then what this detergent has to do, first it has to go inside that fabric. So in order to go the detergent inside this fabric, these hydrophilic molecules will help first. Therefore it forms a head of the hydrophilic molecule. This is a hydrophilic molecule which is known as a head. This head just travels inside the fabric, okay, which is nothing but a wettability of that fabric, which wets the, this head is responsible for wetting of the fabric. And after going inside, whatever the dirt molecules are there, therefore if we consider this as a dirt molecule as a grease, that grease is attracted towards the hydrophobic molecule. This is the R, nothing but a hydrophobic tail. Okay, to this hydrophobic tail, whatever the grease molecules or whatever the dirt molecules are there, it will be attracted towards this one and forms a micella. Micella is nothing but a composition of a hydrophobic detergent molecules with a dirt molecules. It's nothing but a micella. Therefore, this hydrophobic grease will just attracted towards the hydrophobic tail or oil soluble tail. Okay, since this is a hydrophobic, so to this one all the dirt molecules will get attracted and forms one micella. Therefore the soap will just decrease the surface tension and increase the wettability property. Then what happens, this whatever the micella forms, which is a composition of hydrophobic tail and hydrophobic grease molecules, whatever this micella forms, as soon as the surface tension will just decreases, that will come outside of the fabric. Okay, when we just rinse it or just washing machine will just uh, tumble around during the washing, that whatever the particles will be there will just shatter, will just separate it from each other, and therefore the micella will come out, and that micella will be just dropped behind the fabric or behind the corner of some bucket full of water. So this is the mechanism. Okay, for this mechanism to be responsible, the composition of any cleansing component will be in such a way that it should supply hydrophobic molecule and hydrophilic molecules. Usually we will consider the hydrophilic molecule as a alkali metal. Whichever the alkali metal we are supplying is considered as a alkali metal, COONA. Okay, this is nothing but R, okay, which is considered as a tail. Okay, this is nothing but a head and tail mechanism. This head is responsible for wetting of the fabric. Okay, therefore this is water loving or the hydrophilic. Hydrophilic is nothing but a water loving. So this, since this is a water loving molecule, COONA, this what this will do, just it will impinges into the fabric. Okay, it will just disperse into the fabric. Therefore when it go inside, then the action mechanism of hydrophobic molecule will start. Therefore it will attract whatever the grease or whatever the dirt present inside it, and attracts towards it, since this is a hydrophobic tail. Then it forms a micella. That micella will just, as soon as the detergent molecules decrease the surface tension, that will leave behind, that micella will be leave behind the fabric, or in a bucket full of water it will be separated in a corner. So this is the action mechanism of the cleansing component. Whether it may be soap, whether it may be a detergent, it will how it will separate depends on the same mechanism. But how soaps and detergents are different? As we know that soaps are only functionable in the soft water. They cannot function in the hard water. Okay, because of presence of magnesium and calcium ions, or a carbonates or bicarbonate carbonates of these ions, bicarbonates of these ions, they cannot function in that. Soaps cannot function in the particular hard water, whereas in detergents they are separate. They can function in hard water as well as in soft water. Okay, because their sulfonate ions are completely miscible with that ions, so completely react with that ion. That way the mechanism of detergent and soaps will be same, but the decreasing surface tension will be very high in detergent, whereas decreasing surface tension will be very low in soaps. That's the major part of difference between soaps and detergents. Now okay, before going to the next, I should know whether you understand the mechanism or not. Okay,
Yes,
we have one video regarding this one. Uh, do you want to see that, or otherwise shall I continue? If you understood this, I will continue. Otherwise, we have one video regarding this one YouTube video. Anybody? Can you
It's
please
easy
say?
only.
It's easy.
Sir,
Yeah.
repeat
Nandini,
once again, sir.
repeat also. Okay. Yeah, you see, the soap or detergent is composed of two molecules. One is hydrophobic molecule, and next one is hydrophilic molecule. How this soap composition is nothing but RCOONA. Okay, whether it will be detergent or anything, RCOONA will be there. When it is a detergent, it will have sulfate molecules inside. When it is a soap, it will have a only sorts of carboxylic acid will have. So if you consider this as a soap, so this is a R molecule, RCOONA. This is COONA. So we can consider whatever the R composition is there, which is nothing but a carboxylic acid or a carboxylic acid which is there in a aliphatic chain, which is in the form of aliphatic chain. This is a oil loving. Since this is a oil loving, we can say it is a hydrophobic tail. Okay, this COONA is there. It is a hydrophilic molecule. Since alkali is there, it will just produce the molecules of water loving molecules. Therefore it is called as hydrophilic molecule. How this hydrophilic and hydrophobic molecules will be responsible in washing mechanism? Since this is hydrophilic molecule, as soon as detergent is dropped inside the bucket full of water and together with a fabric, what happens, this hydrophilic molecule is there, it is responsible to just send the detergent or a water inside the fabric. This is known as a hydrophilic action. So it will let this hydrophilic molecule will let that particular detergent to go inside that fabric, which is called a wettability. So it will increase the wettability of that particular fabric. Okay, then as soon as it goes inside, the detergent molecule goes inside, the wettability will be increased. Obviously all the fabric will get wetted. Then this mechanism, the mechanism of this hydrophobic tail will start now. What will happen when this go inside the detergent? The hydrophobic molecule attracts the grease. If you consider the dirt as a grease, this is also a hydrophobic. So hydrophobic will be loving each other. So this hydrophobic grease will be attracted towards this hydrophobic tail molecule. Whatever these hydrophobic tail molecules will be there will be just attached with this grease molecule. It will form a micella. This is known as micella. Dirt plus this detergent molecules which are combined together is known as a micella. Whatever this micella will be there will be formed on the fabric. Whenever this detergent action or a surfactant action is to lower the surface tension, to decrease the surface tension, whenever this surface tension will be decreased, that micella will just leave behind, the fabric. Whenever we just rinse our clothes, okay, with our hands or otherwise, we will just tumble in the washing machine. Therefore it will produce a shattering action that will just separate the dirt molecules from the on the fabric from the surface. So that surface, the micellar molecules will just leave behind that bucket full of water. This is the action mechanism for the soaps. So I think I will show one video, then you will clearly understand. Liquid is very
Cleansing action of soaps and detergents. Have you ever tried mixing oil and water? Oil and water are immiscible liquids. If oil and water are mixed together, oil separates and forms a layer of its own. Oil floats on water as it is less dense than water. Why don't oil and water mix? Water molecules are bipolar molecules. They form strong electrostatic bonds with each other. Oil molecules, on the other hand, are non-polar and do not make bonds with the polar water molecules. The bonds that hold oil molecules together are weak van der Waals forces. Observe that oil molecules are large as compared to water molecules. For the mixing of any two liquids, their molecules must have similar natures. Since their molecules are not similar, water and oil do not mix. Molecules that carry charge are attracted to water and are called hydrophilic or water-loving, while molecules without charge lack affinity for water. They are known as hydrophobic. Oil is a hydrophobic liquid. If a mixture of oil and water is agitated vigorously for a sufficient period of time, an emulsion is obtained. The emulsion consists of minute droplets of oil dispersed in water. What happens if this emulsion is allowed to settle down? The oil droplets slowly coalesce and form a separate layer as before. We can infer that the oil and water emulsion is not a stable system. Let's add some soap or detergent to the mixture and see the magic. Addition of a little soap or detergent before agitating the mixture helps in the formation of a stable emulsion. The soap or detergent acts as a surfactant or emulsifier. The surfactant molecules surround the oil droplets and prevent them from coalescing. The cleansing action of soaps and detergents is due to their power to emulsify oil and dirt. Come, let's learn about the cleansing action of soaps and detergents in this module. At the end of this module, you will be able to describe the cleansing action of soaps and detergents. Soaps and detergents are surfactants which help to dislodge dirt and grease by emulsifying them and thus help clean articles. Let's take a look at the molecular structures of soaps and detergents. Observe that they have similar structures. Each molecule is composed of a long, non-polar hydrocarbon chain, which is hydrophobic in nature, and a short polar head, which is hydrophilic in nature. The hydrophilic end is attracted by water molecules, whereas the hydrophobic end of the molecule is repelled by water but is attracted by non-polar substances. Soaps is attributed to this special feature. Have you ever wondered how soaps and detergents work to get rid of dirt and grime? Here's how. Dirt or grime generally has an oily component. Water cannot dissolve oil, and hence water by itself cannot take away dirt. This is where soap or detergent comes of use. Dirty clothes are soaked in water containing soap or detergent. When detergent or soap molecules come in contact with the oil or dirt on the fabric, the non-polar portion of such molecules attaches itself to that bit of grime or oil. Over time, more and more detergent molecules gather around it and a micelle is formed with the oil or dirt inside it. A micelle is a ball-shaped collection of detergent or soap molecules with the hydrocarbon ends clumped together on the inside and the polar heads on the outside. Eventually, through either agitation or stirring of water or rubbing, these micelles are lifted off from the fabric surface and get into the wash water. Remember that because of the charge on the heads of the detergent molecules, the outer surface of the micelle is charged. Since these micelles all have similar charges, they repel each other and remain suspended in the water. These get removed when the water is drained off. Repeated rinsing and wringing remove all such micelles and make laundry crispy clean.
Yeah, I think now it is okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now we will try to summarize what are the action when we just applied a detergent to the fabric. We'll just summarize this one so that it will be easy. Okay, in any cleansing mechanism, there will be a 4 steps. It is called a 4-step mechanism. In the first step, what happens as per that video, the surface to be cleaned is made wet. First, the surface to be cleaned will be made wet by this hydrophilic molecule, COONA. In this second step, what will happen? Soap or detergent is applied to the surface of the adsorb. A surface is to be adsorbed. It will go towards the adsorption of that fabric. This is the second step. The first step is it will just wet, okay, wet the cloth, this hydrophilic molecule. Then it will be adsorbed on that fabric. Okay, then soap and detergents are also called as a surfactant, nothing but a surface active agent. Therefore, their action is will be present in such a way that soaps and detergents will obviously dissolve in water. They will also dissolve in water together with that fabric. Then this solution serves to loosen the surface tension. The surface tension will be very much lowered, and at the same time its wettability characteristics will be increased. Okay, the surface tension is nothing but the force with which that particular dirt molecule or a grease molecule is just holding. In order to get hold of that fabric, they are just acting, that force is acting on that one. This is nothing but a surface tension. Therefore, when this surface tension is lowered, that force is lowered, what happens? It helps water to spread easily over the surface or soak into the clothes. Then in the third step, what will happen when clothes are rubbed together, either by hand or some washing machine or a tumbling action of that washing machine, dirt particles are broken up on a surface. So the active molecules, whatever there, the dirt molecules will work to separate the dirt from the clothes. Okay, and the fourth action is nothing but the soap molecule will produce is, therefore whatever the dirt molecules are separated out will cannot be just redeposited on the surface. That's the fourth action. Okay, therefore these 4 actions need to be associated with any type of cleansing agent. Without this four action, no detergent or no cleansing compound is a successful cleansing compound, we can say. Okay, then next one is the classification of cleansing compound. So we can see here there's a major classification of cleansing components based on it is soap or it is a detergent. Next, further these detergents are classified into 3 types. One is anionic, cationic, and last one is non-ionic. Then how this anionic is classified? Anionic is nothing but when these are dissolved in water, it will give, this anionic detergent will give R plus. This R molecule is there, whatever the fatty acid chain is there, this aliphatic chain is there, it is a negative one. So this is a anion R minus. It will give R minus when it is present in water. Then that are classified as a anionic detergents. Then further these anionic detergents are classified into 3 types: sulfated fatty alcohols, sulfonates, and sulfated esters and acids. These anionic detergents forms a majorly we use it for our human consumption. Large part of our detergents are synthesized by using this anionic detergents only. Okay, we are using anionic detergents for our commercial in our domestic purpose. Okay, next one is the cationic detergents. Cationic detergents, how they are classified? Based on this R group. When R is positive, when these cationic soaps or cationic detergents are present in water, it will release R plus molecules. So R plus, when it is released, it is called as cationic detergent. Okay, when there is no ionic supply from the detergent, then it is called a non-ionic supply or non-ionic detergents. These non-ionic detergents are further classified into 3 more types. One is alkyl aryl ethyl oxide derivative, and next one is aliphatic polyhydric alcohol esters, and third one is fatty acid amines. Now we'll see what all these things are. So these are the classification of cleansing compounds. Then what is soap? We can define the compounds of ROOM. Okay, this is nothing but a soap. RCOO is coming from the fatty acid molecule, where M I already described it. M, it may be Na, alkali compound, which may be Na or K, sodium or potassium. When this M molecule is Na, composed of Na, that is known as hard soap. Okay, when this M molecule is K, potassium, then it is known as soft soap. This hard soap, whatever the household soaps we are using is hard soap, RCOONA. We are using this one fatty acid salts of sodium salts of fatty acids is called as soap. Okay, which is a hard soap we are using for our domestic purpose. For shaving creams, for some hand sanitizers, liquid hand sanitizers, the soaps which are used are RCOOK, which is potassium salts of fatty acids. When this K is present here in place of M, that is called a soft soap. That is used in shaving creams, some hand sanitizers. Okay, when RCOO, this is Na molecule, that is called a hard soap, which is used for our washing purpose, for human purpose. Okay, so this is called a RCOO, is called a fatty acid radical. That may be oric, stearic, palmitic, lauric, linolenic, myristic. Okay, any type of many types of fatty acid compositions are there. So that may be. Then palmitic acid will be very high. Okay, for example, we are using palmitic acid, then palmitic acid will be very high. For example, we are using some not coconut oil, groundnut oil. The oleic acid composition will be very high, and palmitic also will be very high in the groundnut oil. So this RCOO may be palmitic or oleic, depends on that particular type of oil. Then these are usually present in soaps as mixture based on glyceride raw materials. Okay, that's all saying. Glyceride is nothing but a triglyceride molecule or oil molecule. Then M is a alkali molecule. I already said you RCOO. When it is Na, it is called a hard soap. It is used for our human purpose, for normal cleaning purpose, daily bathing. When this is RCOO, M is K, then it is a soft soap. It is used in hand sanitizer or any shaving creams. Then detergents. Then as per the definition, what are the detergents? Detergents are nothing but a synthetic organic chemicals which promote better surface tension, lowering than soaps. That means the surface tension is very lowering surface tension is very high in detergents, whereas it will the surface tension they will reduce somewhat less compared to the detergents. Okay, then detergents are nothing but a potassium or sodium salts of a long alkyl chain ending with a sulfonate group. Like that, we can define what is soap. Soap is nothing but a potassium or sodium salts of a carboxylic acid, which is aliphatic chain, long chain aliphatic chain. Okay, so soaps in the same fashion we can define the soaps. Soaps are nothing but a potassium or sodium salts of a long chain carboxylic acid, which is a aliphatic long chain. Okay, similar way, detergents are nothing but a potassium or sodium salts of a long alkyl chain ending with a sulfonate group. Only difference is here, see, the sulfonate group is there in the detergents. Therefore, this sulfonate group is very much responsible in order to produce a high surface tension lowering properties for the detergents. Further, these classified detergents are classified in the anionic, cationic, and non-ionic. Already discussed. Then what is anionic? Anionic is nothing but which gives R minus ions in the water. Oh, okay. This R is nothing but this composition, this hydrophobic molecule or a fatty acid chain molecule. This will supply when anionic detergents are used inside water. So these are further classified into three types. One is sulfated fatty alcohols. So in the sulfated fatty alcohols, what will happen? The free fatty acids is there. ROH is nothing but a free fatty acid from any coconut type of oil. So this free fatty acid will react with the sulfoxydaniel. This is called sulfoxydaniel HOSO3. This sulfoxydaniel will react with a free fatty acid molecule and gives a detergent. This is a sulfonate detergent, sulfonate composition, which is associated with SO3H group. See, this is known as sulfonate group plus water. Okay, this is a sulfated fatty acids. The next one is sulfonates. Okay, these are the very low priced detergents. So because of this, we use for our household purpose this type of detergents, sulfate detergents, or in particularly we will use anionic detergents very much highly in our day to day use, because these may have a action in alkaline water also, acid water also, and in hard water also it will act. Okay, it will act almost in every type of water. So these are popularly used for our domestic consumption. So these are the low price detergents which are not stable as sulfates. So sulfates are there. These are stable components. These sulfonates are not as stable. But to increase this stability, we will add some additives. Therefore, the final composition will vary somewhat. Depends on particular additives. Okay, how it is formed? The aromatic ring, you can see here, the R molecule is there in the aromatic ring. It will be combined with oleum. Oleum is nothing but a what we call fuming sulfuric acid. Fuming sulfuric acid is which has a more sulfur trioxide composition. As you may have seen in the chemical technology one, in inorganic chemical technology, contact process. You may remember that contact process of sulfuric acid synthesis and lead chamber process. Contact process and lead chamber process. These are the two popular methods to synthesize sulfuric acid. In this, you can there may be defined the what is oleum. Oleum is nothing but a fuming sulfuric acid which has a more composition of SO3H, SO3, more percentage of SO3 is there, then it is called a oleum. Then this oleum is dissolved with this aromatic fatty acid composition along with the sulfonate composition, then aryl benzene sulfonate will be formed. That is popularly known as ABS for our day-to-day domestic use. Then this molecular structure of this R will define whether this is biodegradable or not. When this R is a normal chain paraffin, then this is a biodegradable detergent. Otherwise, when this is a branched or a isoparaffin, then it is called a non-biodegradable. Then it will resist a biodegradability. Now we can say what is the difference between third difference between soap and detergent is these are soaps are composed of entirely the natural oil, so they are biodegradable, naturally biodegradable soaps are, whereas detergents are the synthetic organic chemicals. Okay, depends on this R group. These are maybe biodegradable or may not be biodegradable, but when compared to soap, these are somewhat non-biodegradable. Detergents are somewhat non-biodegradable compared to the soaps. Okay, this is two types of anionic detergents, and third one is the sulfated ester and acids. So sulfated esters and acids will have a good stability in hard water, but they do not have a stability as same such that in acid and alkali environment. So these are used only in hard water. They cannot be used in alkali or acid environment. So this is the difference between that three anionic soaps. Okay, anionic soaps are nothing but which supplies R minus groups in the water. So they are classified into three types, which are first one is sulfated fatty alcohols. In the sulfated fatty alcohols, the following reaction will take place. Okay, then sulfonates are there. In the sulfonates, among the R group, depending on this R group, it is classified as it is biodegradable or it is non-biodegradable. When this R molecule is a long chain normal paraffin, it is a biodegradable. When this is a branched chain isoparaffin, it is a non-biodegradable detergent. Then compared to soaps, detergents are usually considered as non-biodegradable. Okay, then cationic detergents. Then cationic detergents are nothing but which supplies R plus group. Okay, R plus group in water when they are dissolved in water. Okay, these cationic soap do not have a strong detergent characteristics, but they do possess some germicidal properties. Okay, how these germicidal properties will used in our daily purpose. As you can see, harpic, choline, everything. These are germicidal liquids which are used in our bathroom cleaning, etc. Okay, their composition will largely composed of this one, cationic detergents. Okay, so in that one, these cationic detergents will there because they can't remove the dirt. Okay, they are not associated with strong detergent characteristics, but because of their germicidal properties, they will act as a detergent. So these are cationic detergents which are particularly used in our harpic, choline, etc. Okay, then what are the examples for this one? In the chemical examples are nothing but quaternary ammonium salts. Okay, such as pyridinium derivatives. Okay, these are the example chemical examples. Where the physical example is a harpic, choline. These are the trade names, though we can use that as an example also. Then non-ionic. Okay, these non-ionics are nothing but they can't produce any ions when they are dissolved in water. Okay, these are very much will produce very less foam, but possess excellent dirt removal capacity. They will produce excellent dirt removal capacity because they are in process of very high emulsion characteristics. What is emulsion? Emulsion is nothing but ability of a particular compound to just what we call it, to just miscible with other liquid, other immiscible liquid. When there are two immiscible liquid, like see. Oil and water, these two are immiscible with each other. When detergent, as you can see from the previous video, when detergent is added in that one, they will form an emulsion. That is nothing but here in oil and water mixing, emulsion fires in that one. Therefore, they will responsible for separating the dirt from the particles. Therefore, these non-ionic detergents are nothing but which has a strong emulsifying characteristics. Okay, they will produce a less foam, but they will have a strong emulsifying properties. Those emulsifying properties are very much responsible in removing the dirt components on the fabric or some soil components on the fabric. The examples for these structural components is nothing but alkyl aryl ethylene oxide derivatives. Okay, these are the petrochemical composition. From this petrochemical, those are derived. Okay, like kerosenes. Kerosene is also one petrochemical. From this petrochemicals, these non-ionic detergents can also be derived. How these are synthesized, we will know later. Then aliphatic polyhydric alcohols are one examples of non-ionic surfactants. Then fatty acid amides is also one of the non-ionic surfactants. Okay, all these are the classification of detergents. Then how these detergents, various apart from the surface active agents, in the detergents, large part of these detergents will be having a detergent builders. What are these detergent builders? These detergent builders are nothing but a compounds which are added to improve cleansing properties. Further, to enhance the cleansing properties of a detergent, we will use a detergent builder. The examples for these types of builders are nothing but phosphates such as sodium triphosphate or tritodium pyrophosphate. Okay, these are the formulations which are used in the detergent manufacturing. Therefore, they are prepared in such a way that 30 to 50% of the detergent composition will be composed of these detergent builders only. Okay, like another example is sodium carboxycellulose. Okay, 1 to 3 percentage is added to improve the dirt separation mechanism from the fabric to the detergent. Like some other fluorescent dyes are used as a brightness. Some additives like a brightness can also be used in order to give a color to the detergent. Some of the sodium silicate to avoid aluminum corrosion in washing machines. Like when we are using in washing machine, the tumble is there inside. The tumble which just rotates the cloths inside is composed of aluminum. So in order to avoid those aluminum corrosion, we will use the builder as sodium silicate. Then zeolites are there. Then zeolites can also be employed in place of these phosphoric free builders. So phosphorus are non-biodegradable. In order to avoid this non-biodegradability, we will use zeolites in the as a detergent builders. Okay, these are about the detergent builders. And next one, the popular difference between the soaps and detergents. As the first popular difference, we can know that soaps are biodegradable and detergents are non-biodegradable. We can see here. These are consist of RCOONA. R is present in soaps and R is present in detergents also. So only COONA molecule, which is hydrophilic molecule, is given here. Consists of COONA group attached to the fatty acid having a long alkyl chain. Okay, this COONA is a hydrophilic molecule in the soap. Then this SO3Na, this is the hydrophilic molecule in the detergent. So consists of SO3Na group attached to a long alkyl chain. Okay, R chain is a alkyl chain here. Here you can see this is a fatty acid long chain alkyl. R here. Okay, soaps are not effective in hard water and saline water. In the saline water, the soaps are cannot act. Their action cannot be started in this hard water or alkaline water. That's why we are just using in the soft water. Then in detergents, they can effectively act in the hard water and saline water also. Okay, so their effectivity will increase in terms. We can say they will increase the effectivity will increase in presence of hard water because their ions will combine with calcium and magnesium ions, which is responsible for hardness of the water. Then next one is the soaps are biodegradable naturally because they are composed of oil, natural oils. Then detergents are branched chain hydrocarbons, therefore they are not at all biodegradable. So they have a tendency, soaps have a tendency to form a scum in the hard water environment. When we use our soap in hard water or washing for washing of a clothes, this will form some scum. Okay, one chemical composition will be there that will form one film like a structure, nothing but a scum, which is called a scum. Repeatedly washing our clothes with soap, what will happen? This scum will try to deposit on the fabric. Therefore, it will uh, embrittle that fabric structure. It will just after washing for certain sittings, it will just tore our clothes. So therefore this scum is very much responsible in soap, which will destroy our fabric. Therefore we can't use soap in our fabric. Then in the detergents there is no possibility of forming scum, because the ions will just react with the calcium and magnesium ions, which are responsible for the hardness of the water. Then the next difference is the soaps are derived from natural sources, as obviously we know that from vegetable oils and animal fats. Because of that only they are classified as biodegradable. But detergents are the synthetic derivatives. They can also derive from some of the petrochemical components also. They can derive from the fatty acid composition also. But excessively they are charged with builders, external synthetic builders. Because of that they are non-biodegradable. The next difference is the soaps are environmental friendly products since they are biodegradable. Okay, we can say since they are biodegradable, they are considered as very environmentally friendly. But on the other part, the detergents are non-biodegradable. When we release it in the water bodies, this detergents into the water bodies, it will cause a aquatic life death. Okay, it will cause adverse effect to the aquatic life. The fish, prawns, everything, they will just die because of this builders, because of this synthetic molecules like detergents. The next classification is the example and sodium silicate. So soaps are, as per the definition, soaps are nothing but alkali salts of fatty acids. Alkali salts of fatty acids or alkali salts of carboxylic acid, which is a long chain aliphatic, long aliphatic chain. Okay, sodium palmitate or sodium stearate. Whereas for the detergents, we can say it is nothing but a synthetic components, which are the examples of dioxychloric acid and sodium lauryl sulfate. You can see in our shampoos, you can see in the what we call that Harpic and everything in shampoos, this compound you will frequently encounter, sodium lauryl sulfate. Okay, this is a detergent. This gives a detergent properties to that particular shampoo. Now you can observe this sodium lauryl sulfate, SLS, in our shampoos. You can see that one. As in the soaps, the major ingredient apply encountered is the fatty matter. You can see in our soaps, whatever we are using in our bathing soap, the TFM will be there, total fatty matter. It is nothing but a total fatty matter. TFM percentage, as you can observe in our household, when you are just opening your new soap, in that one it will be clearly written that TFM matter. It is nothing but total fatty matter. Total fatty matter. Whenever this fatty matter is very high, that particular soap is considered as very good soap. You can see the Dove soap will have a high fatty matter. In the Santoor soap, it will have around 75% fatty matter. You can observe through those labels. Okay, the next one, when we observe in the shampoo sachet, you can observe this one. It will be there in the sodium lauryl sulfate will be the major composition in the sachets. Okay, just for the tomorrow's task or the next class task is just open the new soap or observe that particular pouch. In that particular pouch there will be a total fatty matter. Okay, whether it may not be present in a full form, TFM will be there. It is nothing but a total fatty matter. How much total fatty matter you are using in your particular soap, you have to observe. And in the detergent, in the label of the detergent, outer pouch of the detergent, you can observe sodium lauryl sulfate or this acid in that one. And in also the sachet of the shampoo also you have to observe. For the next class, this is the task. Okay, in the next class we will see the methods of synthesis of soap. Okay, methods of manufacturing of soap we will see. Okay, I hope this you understood this one. Whether you have any doubts, just please raise your hand. Just ask me whether you have any doubts. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay. From the boys' side?
No, sir.
Okay, no doubt. Yeah, okay. Yesterday, 34, number 34 was. I lost my connection, internet connection. Could you please present today? 34. Number 34.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yesterday you were presenting. Accidentally, I lost my connection. Can you
Yes,
present
sir.
today?
సార్ ఇక్కడ సిగ్నల్ కరెక్ట్గా లేదు సార్ వర్షం అవుతుంది నేను చెప్పినా మీకు వినిపించలేదు.
Okay, okay. No problem. Just leave it. Yeah.
Sir, can I present my presentation now? 17.
Definitely. Definitely. Definitely.
I have prepared my own PPT. Can I share it, sir?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I will make you a presenter. So that
Sir, I'm already present, sir. Everyone is present here. Not a problem.
Okay then. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Sir, is it visible, sir? My presentation.
Only your.
Hello?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is visible.
Is it visible? Oh, okay, sir.
Just
Sir, my
start slideshow.
sir, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Sir, is it visible now, sir?
Yes, yes, yes. Please
Sir,
go
my
ahead.
presentation is the topic is nuclear propulsion system. It is a replacement for chemical energy in rockets. That is the fluids which we use for that, like other petrol or that stuff. And the rocket propulsion system is used in nuclear thermal rockets. The nuclear thermal rockets is a type of rockets where the heat from a nuclear reaction replaces the chemical energy of the propellants in the chemical rockets. And the next point is in a nuclear thermal rocket, a working fluid usually we use and liquid hydrogen, and its heat is heated to a high temperature in nuclear reactor and then expand through a rocket nozzle to create thrust. And we can see that the external nuclear heat source theoretically allows a higher effective exhaust velocity and is expected to double or triple payload capacity compared to chemical propellants that store energy internally. I have highlighted the expected because it is not and experimentally done yet and is successfully done yet. It is and still in trials from 1945 it seems. The development of nuclear thermal rockets. NTRs, the nuclear thermal rockets have been proposed as a spacecraft propulsion technology, which the earlier ground test occurring in 1955, which is totally didn't went successfully. Now and the US maintained and nuclear thermal rocket development program through 1973 when it was shut down to focus on space shuttle development. Although more than 10 reactors are of varying power output have been built and tested, as of 2019, no nuclear thermal rockets has flown because there is a drawback on risk factors for it. Naturally, and if we use and the NTRs, the nuclear thermal rockets, for a interplanetary exploration. And this is the basic flowchart and the basic diagram of a nuclear propulsion system, in which we can see that the liquid hydrogen is sent to the nuclear reactor via a turbine pump, and the nuclear and the reaction happens, and the power and heat energy is exited from the nozzle, and this small pipe is sending some energy to the turbine by which it could work. Next slide, current research on NTRs. Current solid core nuclear thermal rockets designs are intended to regularly limit the dispersion and break off radioactive fluid elements in the event to catastrophic failure. as of 2019, an NTR for the interplanetary travel from Earth orbit to Mars orbit being studied at Marshall Space and Flight Center. It is expected to it is they are saying that the shorter flight duration estimated at 3 to 4 months with NTR engines compared to 6 to 9 months using chemical engines would reduce crew exposure to potentially harmful and difficult to shield cosmic rays. Like if we are using a chemical engine, we have to use we have to if there is any issues, we have to go on to the outer space and in the astronauts could go to the outer space and do some technical work. So in nuclear one, it is reduced. They are thinking like that. NTS engines such as the PV of Project Rover was selected in the Mars Design Reference Architecture in 2007 by NASA. NASA continued research and developments on NTRs, designing for space applications with civilian approach materials with a 3-year, 18.8 million contract. It is NASA is looking after it because in the near future we have to and everyone is trying to like Elon Musk and NASA and everyone trying to go to the and explore Mars. So we have to use this. But there is a risk factor for them. There is factors with NTRs, nuclear thermal rockets. An atmosphere or orbital rocket failure could result in dispersal of radioactive materials into the environment, which are harmful for us. A collision with a detritus, and which means scattered piece of remains, like any pieces of small waste materials in the space, would if it collides, material failure due to control fusion or material imperfection or fatigue or human design flaws could cause a containment breach of the missile and fissile material. And in the previous slide, I have highlighted the word expected because scientists are uh, still trying to do a better version of these NTRs because if any human error or happens, it will be big flop, big disaster for us. And next point we have to see that such a catastrophic failure while in flight could release radioactive materials on over the earth in a wide and unpredictable area. We don't know where it will falls and where it will it will falls in unpredictable area. That is the main risk we should think of it. The amount of contamination would depend on the size of the nuclear thermal rocket engine, while the zone of contamination and its concentration would be depending on the prevailing weather and orbital parameters at the time of the entry. If thank you, sir. I want to say once again about the risk, and if the if the rocket is exploded, that very rockets are exploding in the trials for when we are sending out of the space. If this rocket exploded, the radioactive elements will be scattered around everywhere. If the weather over there is full windy, it will go through so many and far away places, and it could harm the human lives and human life staying around there. And thank you, sir. This is my presentation. Thank you, sir.
Definitely very good presentation. I think you are very much interested in nuclear physics, I guess. You may be conducting a future research on this part. Okay, I congratulate
Okay,
you.
sir.
Thank you for the nice presentation and a topic also very nice. So you are doing somewhat advanced research in that one. Please carry on in the same way. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank
Okay,
you,
I
sir.
hope everybody today enjoyed your presentation. My presentation as well as yours name 17. Sorry, I couldn't remember.
Kamesh.
Kamesh, yeah. Kamesh and my presentation is, I think you enjoyed this one. If you have any doubts, you can contact me. The same thing I'm repeating. Just go for doubts. When you ask doubts only, we will find a motivation to prepare further. Otherwise, we will take casually. I will just prepare slides in normal way and I will present whatever there in the book. I will present nothing else. Okay, when you are asking doubts, then only I can go beyond the textbook and beyond that one only I can prepare the material as well as presentation. Okay, yeah. Thank you for listening.
Bye, sir.
Okay, bye.
Bye, sir.